Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Today I am by myself. I'm going to be with John in about 10 minutes to do the next podcast. So, we had to wait because of time issues and stuff. I had this episode ready. This is actually the episode that was almost the lost episode. I recorded this already, but my Audacity messed up, so I had to redo it again right now, which is why it's going to come out right before the next episode with John. But let's just hop right into it. I'm going to wait on Steelers news and NFL news until the next episode when I'm doing it with John. So we're going to skip that for now. And we're just going to go straight into the divisional recap here. So we're starting off with the first game, and that's the Eagles upsetting the Falcons 15-10. Easily the second best game of divisional weekend for me. I'm a little biased because probably the Steelers game might be the second for most people, but I'm going to go with the Eagles one. The Eagles showed that they could still be a threat without Wentz and really embrace that underdog narrative by having a player literally wear a dog mask after they won. Basically, as expected, this is a low-scoring affair and was more about defensive play than offensive. And that was shown. Neither offense was really great looking, but I think that was because of great defensive play on both sides. Usually it's the team that doesn't turn the ball over that wins, but despite no turnovers on the Falcons' offense and the Eagles fumbling 4 times and losing 2 of them, the Eagles were still able to edge out the Falcons as they were better. The stat sheet is almost misleading, though, as the Falcons looked to have the better receiving core and running backs in this game. But that was just a story for the offense. The Eagles' defense was better than the Falcons' defense in this game, setting more tackles for a loss, more sacks, and way more passes defended and quarterback hits. Basically, they were the playmakers, the Eagles. And the Falcons' defense just wasn't as great as they were last week. I expected that too. I didn't see them keeping it up and doing all the great stuff that they did. But that was enough to win the game for the Eagles, as the Falcons' offense just wasn't able to capitalize. To wrap it up, this game was pretty fun to watch. If you didn't see, there was an immaculate reception-esque play made by Torrey Smith at the end of the first half that got the Eagles into field goal range. And that was one of my favorite plays from Divisional Weekend, actually. And I can't wait to see if the Eagles can actually put up a fight against the Vikings. So far, some analysts have actually picked the Eagles to win against the Vikings. I find that interesting, but that's a story for the next episode. But, as for my bold predictions and X Factors, no bold predictions panned out for me. I was very far off. And with the score as well, I actually predicted the Falcons winning. But as for my X Factors, Sanu was alright. 3 catches for 50 yards, nothing to write home about. But Ronald Darby for the Eagles was solid. He got 7 solo tackles, including 1 for a loss. All 7 of his tackles were solo, by the way. And he also had a pass defended, so he did well. But that wraps it up for the first game. We're going to move on to the next game, which was the Patriots beating the Titans 35-14. Well, for the first few drives of this game, the Titans looked like they stood a chance. Titans got on the board first with a pretty touchdown to Corey Davis, and it seemed like we might have actually had a game. But the Patriots just took off. Marcus Mariota, while making no mistakes, simply couldn't keep up with Tom Brady, which was expected. He had no help from his running game as Derrick Henry rushed for 28 yards on 14 carries, which is horrible. Really, the offensive line for the Titans is just horrid, and I think that's really what lost it for them, what really took them out of the game. They gave up 8 sacks, and sure they lost Conklin in this game to an ACL tear, but still, one defensive lineman shouldn't make the difference between whether your line is good as a whole or not. They all just performed poorly. This is one of the lines that was one of the better ones this year, and it was against med pass rush, so it's just kind of like, how did this happen? It's really, really, it boggled me when going back to see the game and stuff, that they performed so poorly, and really, other than that, that's really what messed up Derrick Henry, in my opinion. I think, not to say that a running back shouldn't be good without his offensive line, but the offensive line was just so bad in this game. So very bad. The Patriots had 8.5 tackles for a loss in this game. I'm sorry, 9. ESPN wrote 8.5 for whatever reason, and I didn't catch it when I wrote it down. They had 9, and that was comparatively for the Tennessee defense. They only had 3, and they had 0 sacks. If you're not going to put pressure on Tom Brady, he's going to dice you up. I know as a Steelers fan that if you don't get the pressure there, he's just gonna keep messing you up here. But funny enough, I found it funny anyway. Logan Ryan led the team in tackles for the Titans. And it was like a revenge game for him, I guess it felt like. So he actually did really good for himself. For everyone else, not so much. As a whole, the defense was really bad for the Titans, and I mean that's kind of expected against Tom Brady. Everyone that versus Tom Brady is scared of Tom Brady, so it's not like it's something super embarrassing. I mean, everyone gets really lit up by Tom Brady, but still, you kind of you kind of expected more. You kind of hope for more. At least most of our listeners would definitely probably have, as we all wanted the Titans to somehow win it. But as I said, basically to wrap this up, just the run game wasn't there to help Mariota, and that was on the offensive line. And then obviously Tom Brady did Tom Brady things, and he had help from his running backs. And Danny Amendola stepped up in this game, getting 11 receptions for 112 yards. And that's really the key difference in this game. Is just the New England had it all figured out. They all did great on every side of the ball. Uh, and then on the other side, Tennessee's offense was partially there, but their defense wasn't even in it. So that wraps it up for the Patriots Titans. But firstly, let's go into how my bold predictions and stuff worked out. Well, my final score of 41-17 was pretty close. The game ended 35-14, so I'm gonna give myself that one. I think that's close enough. I had the Patriots score off by 6 and the Titans off by 3, so 9 in total. You could fight me about it. I'd take an argument, but and my X factor for the Titans was Corey Davis, and he was probably the best receiver on the team, despite not leading in yards. He got the 2 touchdowns for the Titans, so he did great. And my X factor for the Patriots was Kyle Van Noy, and he got 2 solo tackles, but that was it. So he didn't do too great on that side. Now, the game of the week. Vikings winning against the Saints 29-24. Did we not call it? Did we not call that this might be a game you remember for a while? A walk-off touchdown. Case Keenum has a whole stadium in his hands trying to pump them up. I don't know if you guys saw that. If you guys can look it up. Case Keenum was clapping up and trying to hype up everyone, and everyone was believing in Case Keenum, which is still crazy to say. And then you have a walk-off touchdown because the poor rookie Marcus Williams missed a tackle, or he lowered his head, missed the tackle, and let Stephon Diggs get a walk-off touchdown. That game was great. Honestly, either team probably could have won that. It's really, really good game. I think as a whole, both defenses did pretty well. I thought that the Saints would have came out on top and put up a little bit more points. But besides that, they were awesome. This whole game as a whole was awesome. We'll talk about the Saints offense. Drew Brees had 2 turnovers, but I really feel like only one was bad. One was a tip drill to Everson Griffin, so I don't really think of that one as a really bad one. But the other one was he threw into triple coverage, and Andrew Sendejo came down with it. And honestly, those 2 interceptions are probably what did it. I honestly think that that might have been the difference in this game. Had he not thrown those, it would have been a different game. But other than that, on the offense, the rushing game wasn't there for the second week in a row, and that was kind of disappointing. I really expected more coming into this game. I knew that the Vikings were a good team, but I thought that the Saints could still rush all over them because Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram were great, but they both averaged meh. Mark Ingram was actually kind of bad at 2.5, and Alvin Kamara was only decent at 3.9 yards per carry, and neither of them had touchdowns in this game. But on the other side for the offense, Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon each had touchdowns, which was interesting. They didn't really do good as rushers either. Latavius Murray was the feature back, and he had 19 carries for 50 yards with a 2.6 average, which was better than Mark Ingram. And then Jerick McKinnon had 8 rushes for 34 yards, and he had a 4.3 average, which was better than Kamara. So that's how I look at it, but I mean, I could see a problem being that Latavius Murray rushed more than Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, and not combined, just separately, but still. Going on to the receivers were pretty even in this game as a whole. The Vikings edged them out with 318 yards. But the Saints had 3 receiving touchdowns. So they were really close in this game. I think that both receiving, all the receivers were really good in this game, including running backs that caught the ball out of the backfield. For the Saints, Michael Thomas was that dude. I love Michael Thomas, and no one talks about him, I feel like, as a top wide receiver in the league. I've loved him since he came out of since he was drafted. I knew in fantasy last year to pick him up in free agency as soon as he started doing good, because he was with Drew Brees. I knew that this could continue. Ever since then, he's been on my fantasy team since last year, and then this year I drafted him again, and he really didn't disappoint. And in the first half he started slow, but he's really heated up. He had 7 receptions in this game for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he was the most targeted receiver, and deservedly so. He is so good. I love watching Michael Thomas play. Then next up, the next leading receiver was Ted Ginn with 8 for 72. He's typically a long ball receiving threat, but his longest was 15, so he's more reliable in this game than he. I wouldn't say he's unreliable normally, but he's normally more of a Drew Brees chucks it as far as he can, and Ted Ginn's the one that's running a straight line. But he did good. Then Alvin Kamara was next. He had 4 catches for 62 yards and stuff. He did pretty well in the receiving game, I would say. And then everyone else, it's kind of. There's not a lot to say. 3 for 54 for Josh Hill, 2 for 18 for Willie Snead, 1 for 3 for Mark Ingram. Not much. But onto the other side, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, those are those dudes. The Vikings probably have 2 top 10 wide receivers on their team at the moment in these two. Diggs obviously had that walk-off touchdown, and he had 6 receptions for 137 yards. Thielen had 6 receptions for 74, but he had a long of 24, so he was no slight either. And Stephon Diggs had a long of 61, I should say. These guys are awesome. Jarius Wright is the next leading receiver with 3 catches for 56 yards. He had a really clutch 22-yard grab early in the game that set up the Jerick McKinnon 14-yard run. And it was awesome. It was really pretty. I'm enjoying watching Case Keenum throw the ball, and I haven't even talked about him yet. He did decently in this game. He was asked to throw a lot. That was his college mantra. He was asked to throw a lot, so it wasn't bad for him. He threw 40 times. Actually, him and Drew Brees threw the same exact amount of times and for the same completion percentage. Both are 25 for 40, and that's something I didn't know. That's a little interesting fact for you. They both threw the same exact. But, I would say that Drew Brees did better in this game only because Drew Brees threw 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Case Keenum threw 1 touchdown and 1 interception. So Drew Brees' ratio was better. Case Keenum did throw for a few more yards though, but it's nothing nonetheless. As for offensive line play and defensive sacks, both were pretty even again in this game. Both teams took 2 sacks from the opponent's defense. And I guess the Vikings' defense was better because Drew Brees got sacked for more yards. But, I mean, you could make an argument. My one gripe, I actually, there is a reason why I picked the Vikings over the Saints. Cameron Jordan was a no-show in this game. He literally had 1 tackle, I believe, and it was not solo. It was an assisted tackle. So it was just really, really poor play from him. And he was talking a lot of smack last week, too. He sent the Panthers, he sent Cam Newton a bottle of wine, and he was talking so much smack, and that's what happens. That's what happens when you're just a little bit stupid, I guess. But really, the tale of the defense is this: the Vikings defense was probably a bit better, I would say. They had more tackles for a loss. They had way more passes defended with 8 compared to 5. And really, it's so hard. I think the Vikings defense is better as they edged out this game, And they kept the Saints to 0 points in the first half. It was 17-0 by the end, so I guess that's something. But they broke down in the second half. But still. Oh, and I wanted to talk about it. Harrison Smith's sack was awesome, and I still can't believe he's a Pro Bowl snub. But that's really all I had to say. Like, this game was just probably one of the ones that you'll remember for a while. Marcus Williams missing the tackle at the end, and Stephon Diggs hitting the walk-off touchdown. Vikings are the team I'm rooting for the rest of the playoffs, so I'm hoping for the best for them. So let's go into my bold predictions. X Factors. I hit none of my bold predictions, unfortunately, and my score was wrong as I picked the Saints to win. But the Vikings won 29-24, obviously. So my X factors for the Saints didn't pan out so well, as Ingram and Kamara struggled again in this game against a great Vikings defense. I suppose you could say Kamara worked out as he added 62 yards through the air on 4 catches, but his rushing game was just average. For the Vikings, though, their receivers did wonderfully and truly were the X factors in the game, obviously with Diggs having a walk-off touchdown, and they both combined for over 200 yards. But all right, you're going to hear me again in about 5 minutes. These episodes are probably going up back to back. So here's the social media. You guys should check us out. We're on SoundCloud and YouTube. We also have Twitter, which is our @ is stronger_steel. Our Instagram is stronger_steel_NFL. Our Facebook is @ Stronger Than Steel Podcast. And we also have a website where we post our stuff. The website is strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. So please check us out. You could also send us an email on Gmail. It's strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. And you could obviously leave any feedback, comments, concerns. Tell us you hate us. Whatever you want to do. So that'll wrap up this episode. I want everyone to have a good day, and I'm looking forward to next season, I suppose, since the Steelers aren't in it anymore, but we'll still be recapping the rest of the NFL, and we're hoping for the Patriots to lose somewhere along the line. We hope that they don't win it all. All right, everybody. Have a good night.